Hey everyone, this is GosuDad and welcome to Season 6 of the Blizzard Online Ladder. Today we'll be taking a look at my 1 vs 1 qualifier game, CuePhoenix vs Daddio, Terran vs Terran on Entombed Valley. Hey everyone, this is GosuDad and welcome back to Season 6 of the Blizzard Online Ladder. It's been such a very long time since I've cast any ladder games, but here we are taking a trip back in time at the beginning of Season 6, my 1 vs 1 qualifier game between myself, CuePhoenix, playing Terran in the red in the upper right hand corner versus Daddio in the blue playing Terran. Almost said that kind of funny. So here we are in the online ladder. Now all these games I will be casting in kind of a review kind of style, and not only that, but the intent here is to cast some of these games, get back into StarCraft 2, get back into understanding that wonderful upper Bronze League, Silver League, lower Silver League meta. So here we are, Terran versus Terran, a mirror matchup on Entombed Valley, 4-player map with a... I hear there's a close by ground and a close by air position, and I'm not really sure about that. I mean, if you look at the close by ground pathway through here from the entrance ramp, we've got this natural that's very easy to get to over here on the right hand side, and then there are these destructible rocks to a third over here on the left hand side. Now this game won't be going quite that long. I did glance at this replay review a little bit earlier. So if we look at this pathway down from the main plus the 2 bases, you can walk this way, I should say, around this extra expansion kind of here in the middle, down to your opponent's base, large entrance ramp, right up to their base. So that's the ground pathway. Now I think the close by air position is when you come kind of crosswise from, trying to use my massive mouse pad, from left to right. I think that's what they call the close by air positions. So, whoa, as my mouse is all over the place. So the reason why I point that out is that in this game I will be doing some kind of push out with a bunch of ground units going through this pathway here that we can see. Okay, I'm going to try to pan again. I think my panning speed is slower than my scrolling speed or something like that. So that's a pretty long distance to go. Now the reason why I bring that up is in a mirror matchup, it's all about the deviations between yourself and your opponent. So here in Terran versus Terran, the Terrans build their buildings, I guess I would say slowly, one at a time. Those buildings build units with a certain timing. It's not like Protoss where you can have a warp gate type of a warp gate mechanic where a bunch of units come in all at once. It's not like Zerg where you can store up a bunch of larvae and build a whole bunch of different units all at the same time. With Terran, you're really restricted by the buildings you build, which makes the differences between the two players very important. So you can see here I'm going for double barracks. That's going to give me a benefit in building Marines at first. That's going to give me a short burst of army units at the beginning. Now my opponent is going for a factory pretty quickly, and he also went for double barracks, but one of his barracks has a reactor which is already done. So he spent some tech here to get extra production capability. So he's going to be able to make units very quickly, although I have already started to make units. So I'm ahead of him briefly, for a brief amount of time. I'm ahead of him in army count. And if I don't take advantage of that, then his buildings with these add-ons are going to be able to catch up as far as being able to produce units. Now the reason why I bring all that up is that even if I take these units right here, these 6, and if we slow down the speed just a little bit down to normal and check out the army tab, you can see that well, actually we're tied up on army supply. I think that's because he's got something big coming out here. No, I guess he doesn't. I guess he's just got a bunch of Marines. So the point of that was saying I did have these Marines much earlier than him, and if I don't, in the time it takes these Marines to make it across the map, he does have a defender's advantage. In the time it takes my Marines to make it across the map, he's already finished building these tech structures, and he's already caught up with building Marines. So that says that if I'm going to go for this early double barracks pressure type of strategy, I need to have started that almost immediately, especially given that these walk distances. It's also very important for me to scout. In my case, in a 4-player map, there's 3 different starting locations he could be in, and it's very crucial for my Marines to make it there in time. So since I didn't do that, I'm now basically behind in the production side. I'm just building my first reactor here, so we can see that our army counts are very similar. because of the because I didn't send those Marines out early. So now we're kind of on even ground as far as the buildings go. I've got 3 barracks and he's got 2, so I'm slightly ahead in that regard. But he's got this factory and he's going to be able to research some tech. So that's kind of the deviation between our 2 strategies here, is that I went for some early army units, and that really didn't benefit me at all. Because I didn't use those units to put on pressure. Now, one could say that I used those units to defend, but in this case, my whole intent was to put on pressure, and I waited so long to send these guys out. You can see I'm kind of clicking back and forth between them up and down on the supply depot, that my intent was to build a bunch of army units and send them across the field. But because I waited, I'm losing that advantage every moment, and now I've lost that advantage, and he's got a tech advantage on me. So now it becomes an interesting game of what is he going to do with that tech. If he leaves his tech at home, by the time my army comes, he'll be able to destroy it and he'll have an army advantage. He may not have enough to push out and counterattack, because again, if he counterattacks, he's going to have to go through that same long walk that I did to get to his base. But he could do a drop, which is something, a flexibility that he gains by building the starport. So my opponent kind of following a very similar path to Ray's in the last couple of the show matches that I played. And again, like I said, in a mirror matchup, it's all about the differences in the 2 strategies. So here we go. Let's go ahead and just pause this. We'll speed it up and pause. Let's take a look at these 2 armies. Now I'm pushing out with this group here. Let's go ahead and count these, what we have here. So we've got 5 Marauders and 10 Marines against his ground force, which is 1 Marauder, so that's 5 to 1. And 8 Marines. So I have a much larger ground force than he does. I should be able to take this out, but it will take my units some time to make it across the map, and in that time he can build units, 2 Marines and a Marauder every 30 seconds or so to make up that difference. So I think he's going to have about an even army by the time I get there. Now, while my army is moving across, while they're getting ready to engage, undo pause, go back to normal speed, he's sending this drop which has 6 Marines and a Marauder, and I'm able to see this with this SCV. So the question is, what do I do with that knowledge? I should be building units and keeping them back in my base, and instead they're rallied away. Even though I saw that medevac heading out, I rallied one more set of units away, and these units could have stayed back to fight off this medevac drop. Now I think I may have seen the medevac very briefly, but I don't think it really registered until about now. And now is a really bad time for this to register. But even so, and let's just pause real quick here. You can see there's 2 Marines from that barracks with the reactor and the 2 Marauders. If those had stayed home, because I saw the drop with this SCV, which this was a good plant for the SCV to be able to see expansions, and I didn't even think about it, to see a drop coming in, I would have been able to have a much more even force to fight off this drop. I mean, in fact, even if the Marines were over here, they could have possibly destroyed the medevac on its way in before it was able to drop its payload. So that's just kind of an interesting thought there, is that once you sent this big massive group, right, these reinforcements aren't going to be able to help that group at all, almost whatsoever, because once this group hits the opponent's group, it's going to start dwindling down. So these units are it's better to save these units for a second wave, I guess is what I would say, because if the units come in one at a time, they're just going to get destroyed. Even if there's any kind of remaining force after this big engagement that's coming up here, onesies, twosies, they're just going to get destroyed. There's no use for them there. They're better to stay back at the base or be scouting or something like that. So even at this point, seeing the medevac, if I would turn them around right now, they would be able to help some with the defense. Now the other thing to note is I am already building units here. So 2 Marines, 2 Marauders. If these guys stick around, then them plus the SCVs should be able to hold off this drop. That's a lot of SCVs right there. That's 20 SCVs right there. So if we just watch the game and see what happens. Oh, there go 2 Marines. They should have stayed. And the Marauders may stick around. Okay, so here's an interesting point. So we've got a drop here. Let's see if we can see what is going on here. Okay, we've got a Marines, Marauder. Oh, a Marine back here by the minerals. So this is a great place for these guys to drop. The SCVs do quite a bit of damage on their own. They do 5 damage, but they have a very slow DPS. So that means on their first strike at their opponent, they'll do a pretty good amount of damage, but it will be a while before they attack again. So because of that, the SCVs want either a very large area of it, surface area to attack against, so you want as many SCVs contributing to the fight as possible, or you want to take them, rally them to a mineral so that they stack on each other, and then turn around and attack with them so that all the SCVs that are stacked on top of each other will hit a single unit all at once, like one great big alpha strike. So I'm not doing that at all. I'm just saying, like, grabbing them and saying attack move, I think, is what I did there. So that's a problem. Now these guys up here, they I knew that there was going to be a split of micromanagement. So I decided to try to micro back here at the base, so I told these guys to attack move up the ramp, which, as you can see, that defender's advantage is starting to kick in here. I don't think any of these Marines have died yet. So at this point, I still have a pretty strong force. Marauder-wise, I'm up a little bit, but on the Marine count, he's ahead. So you see there that the time it took for these units to make it across, he's already built up that defender's advantage just from a time distance standpoint. He's been able to even that up. So at this point, I think the battles are fairly even. I think that this group may have a couple of surviving units at the end of this, and they may make it before the tank comes out, but I think he's going to have a unit advantage even when my group attacks. Now, he was building a reactor at this time, and that was a huge advantage for me. If he had built a medevac, that would I think he would have a much stronger defense there. So let's go ahead and hit play, and we will see what happens here. So this was almost perfect for me in this case because my big group hits his slightly smaller group because his reinforcements didn't join up with his group up here. And then these 2 Marines joined, of course, and I have, oh, see, these Marines are just so late, there's just no point in them being there. Back here in the main, we can see that my 20 SCVs have been whittled down to 9. So that's just completely devastating. 1 Marauder, 3 Marines have survived. The medevac still has energy to heal these units. So that was a huge blunder on my part, and these 2 Marauders just going the wrong direction. So that's I think it's just a good contrast of both of us not really micromanaging our units, or just not. It's not even micromanaging. It's placing them. It's army placement. It's army movement and placement. By him having his group spread out between a group here and a group at the top, he was at an army disadvantage when actually I think he was fairly even. But because of that, he lost his entire first group, putting me at an advantage here. Even this group is much stronger than this group. So so that was kind of his placement blunder there, and myself here, of course. All my units left the base, were still rallied out of the base when they should have stayed behind. And these SCVs, it would have been better for them to run away first to try to kind of keep his army units busy and not attacking the command center, which is possible that they would have done that. If I would have taken the SCVs, ran him away, he may have tried to chase the SCVs, and while he did that, the command center was not getting damaged and it was buying me time for my units to build. But I didn't do that. I just took the units and said, "You will attack," because my SCVs are heroes, and they weren't quite. So looking at this battle here, this is kind of an interesting one as well. You can see that these units are set on attack move, and 3 Marauders are able to completely block this entrance ramp. So I have all these units in the back that aren't able to contribute to the fight. So he's actually able to hold off this group fairly well with just a handful of units, because when there's only 3 or 4 units at the top of the ramp fighting only 2 or 3 units that are stuck on the ramp, the fight's pretty even. Whereas if all of these guys had been within range because I moved them closer and then attacked, they would have done much better. Example right there, they just completely blew up that tank almost immediately. Now here's a good, interesting example of the difference between the SCV defense back at my base here and his base here. So in his case here, he was very smart, dropped the Marines and the Marauder right against the mineral line, reducing their surface area. But if you look in this case, I'm balled up in the middle. Well, I guess I'm worse than that. I'm spread out in a line with a whole bunch of open area around me. And he has actually a lot of SCVs. He's got about, oh boy, what is that, 23 SCVs? So we'll watch and see how this goes. Okay, hit points tab's a little too busy. try to select my units before they die, and you can see that they're being damaged pretty well. You get almost a complete surround on my units by these SCVs, and these two units, remember I said that they were coming so late that they weren't going to be able to help in that fight at all? These are those two Marauders that left the base. Actually, maybe those aren't the two Marauders that left the base late. I think they were. So they're just a complete waste, right? I mean, that's just, what, 200 minerals, 50 gaseous down the drain, and that is definitely GG, because his drop did an excellent job of killing all the SCVs, even all my defensive units that I tried to build back here, and he was able to hold off my attack and survive with most of his SCVs. Look at that, about half. So yeah, pretty interesting game for the start of Season 6, and I think just an interesting discussion about the mirror matchup, those deviations, and that army placement. You know, there's nothing to say that I think either of us could have had a stronger engagements. They're all dependent upon on how we handled those engagements. You saw that he did a really good job with his SCVs attacking in the open ground, and myself kind of getting stuck in things. But now I'm getting into the post game, so I guess we should talk about that later. All right, so that was an interesting game to see for sure, and it's going to be interesting here to watch Daddio's camera control at the very end of this game. You can see he's bringing in those SCVs to attack those units there. So once again, a good start to Season 6 and kind of analyzing the Silver Bronze League play here, and we can see that this game really came down to two different army engagements and their placements, and of course how these two players, myself and Daddio, decided to handle our SCV defense, and him doing a much better job with the SCV defending, me doing a terrible job, as you can see up here at my base, with the SCV defense, and both of us making some small blunders with our use of our armies. Both myself trying to go for that, that double barrack start, but not making use of those Marines that I built, and on his side, having those units split up at the front of the base. So he, had a pretty good ball of units equivalent to mine, but I had those split up, so they got destroyed. All right, well, GosuDad signing off. Take a look at my blog if you want, GosuDad.blogspot.com, and of course the Twitter at GosuDad. And we will see you guys in Game 1 of the Season 6 of my Blizzard Online Ladder run. See you guys later.